Jason Taylor says, does anyone really believe McKenzie can beat out a healthy Crowder for the starting slot receiver? One, so Eric will start with you, but two, I want to see everybody's answers in the chat here because I know Bills Mafia this offseason, at least from my Twitter experience, I feel like it's very divided. There's a lot of people who think Isaiah McKenzie is going to be the truth. There's a lot of people who think Jamison Crowder is going to be the truth. And as always, with how it is on Twitter, there's not a lot of meeting in the middle. So I want to see everybody's answers in the chat, please, and thank you. Eric, we'll start it off with you here. You know, if all things are equal, we're looking at McKenzie and Crowder. Do we really believe Isaiah McKenzie can beat out a healthy Crowder for the starting slot receiver?
I mean, right from the jump, though, it says a healthy Crowder, right?
Yes.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
that's correct. The problem with him. And my eyes watching McKenzie at camp, he has been as good as advertised. And I will say, because, again, I've studied him since he's come onto the team. He's developed really well. And two things stood out at camp is obviously his speed, just always flashed. But it was always a straight line speed, right, guys? There wasn't too much change of direction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, from the slot, a lot of his release packages, he's varying them up. He's added to his release package. He's added some hezzy releases. He's slow playing it like Cole Beasley did. He's added that. So, and that makes things so much more difficult. We did a film room a few months ago about Khalil Shakir talking about the illusion of speed. It's fantastic to have speed, but you have to vary that speed to really maximize it. And I think McKenzie has worked on that this offseason. So his release packages and variance and pace to his routes are 100% better than when he came to the Bills. He's a lot better in that department. And when I start to think about the scheme and how defenses are going to start to defend the Bills, if defenses want to go to those two high shells, which we've talked about all summer, you got to expose the underneath defenders.
Yes.
Those three defenders underneath, those 2 to 3 guys underneath, whether they're linebackers and a nickel or whatnot, whatever combination. There's a lot of green to cover, and there's a lot of weapons on the Bills, and they're going to space him out. As good as Cole Beasley was over the years and in last year, a slight step back, but still very effective. One thing that he didn't really do well, he didn't have the speed after the catch. And McKenzie did last year. Yak per attempt was 4.7. So if they can get those option routes like Cole Beasley used to run to McKenzie in advantageous positions and placement, guys, he can do something after the catch. Then there's a little more business to be made and a little more yardage to be made underneath versus those two high looks. So does he have a shot versus a healthy Crowder? I think that speed and where Dorsey has come from in his career, having like guys like Teddy Ginn, with Carolina, like that type of speed, you just can't coach. Maybe he doesn't have the refinement of Crowder, but again, you're talking, can he beat out a healthy Crowder? Well, we haven't seen a healthy Crowder. I've seen a healthy McKenzie, and I've seen a McKenzie that's improved. So right now, I think McKenzie, I think it's as advertised. He's the starting slot wide receiver.
So, yeah, I really would echo everything that Eric said. He nailed that. The main thing I want to drive home is the fact that McKenzie knows this offense. He's comfortable with this offense.
And it's a complex offense, right?
It's very
not
complex.
Easy.
Exactly. Like Tavon Austin even said that in one of his pressers about how complex this offense really is. So, and I think there were early reports that Crowder was struggling to grasp it fully. So, and then that on top of the health thing, it does obviously make this all very murky. But even if Crowder is healthy, I think he's technically behind the 8 ball because he's learning. He has to match the physical with the mental, where McKenzie has those two matched, and it's just up to executing at that point. So I think he has the edge, and obviously based on everything we've heard from camp, it's clear that he does.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And, for me, as, we start to pull up and look at some Isaiah McKenzie tape from training camp here, the biggest thing, and this clip is really awesome to see for, me individually because of, some of the concerns I have. And it ties in with several of the things you mentioned, Eric. Like if you're comparing Crowder and McKenzie, Crowder is that guy who he can function in that world where he's working that leverage and space underneath in those zone coverage and those two high concepts by the defense and figuring out how to leverage space and run those option routes. McKenzie has been more that straight line matchup guy who, gets the ball in a jet sweep and gets the corner and gets you that first down. But this year, it seems like he's added more I don't want to say agility because he's agile, but he's add more sharpness and more defined agility to his game. This clip, like this route, I don't care that this is practice. I don't care that this is training camp. This route is real as hell. The way he sets it up, the way he snaps it off and gets upfield, this is gorgeous.
Yeah, I love this. First of all, obviously from top down with Josh Allen looking to his left and obviously holding those safeties. Looks like man coverage. You see Bernard coming down to pick up somebody, but you see Terrence Johnson's in trail technique, and you see him on McKenzie's right shoulder here, and McKenzie is selling that corner route, and then again break into the middle of the field, and that type of speed with that type of route running, again, versus whether it's underneath or versus those two high looks, those middle of the field open looks, if you can get the ball down the middle of the field to a guy with McKenzie's speed, I mean, there are some big plays on the horizon for the Bills offense, because as good as Cole Beasley was from the slot, as good as Gabriel Davis has been from the slot, they don't have the speed to stress the defense as vertically, as deep down the field as McKenzie can. So if you add in this type of route running and just that processing of leverage from Terrence Johnson being on that right hip and just leaning into it, using that rocker step, that 1-2 to the post, like this is stuff. This is how the offense can evolve. This is how that slot position can evolve. And I just love seeing him, again, progress, but getting involved in the red zone here for the touchdown. Obviously a condensed part of the field that, you know, the play has to be on the money. It's got to be on point, and the route has to be sharp. And he sold this one really well.
This route has so much. There is craftiness to it. There is nuance.
He's always leaning into that. It's just filthy.
That's my thing. Like, and it's a combination for me, and that's one of them. The second is like he's up against one of the best nickel corners in the entire NFL. Like Terrence Johnson is phenomenal, and the lean, Eric, like you said, like. So he comes out of that first cut and he's got the body language. Like he's almost perpendicular to the line. Like he's going horizontal. He's selling that out portion. But then the lean, literally exactly where you have it freeze framed. Like I literally mean leaning for those for those in the comments who potentially don't know. He's leaning on Terrence Johnson to establish that leverage piece and set him up for the separation by getting a feel of where Terrence Johnson is. So he leans into Terrence here, and when he feels him get he feels him get horizontal, sticks that right foot in the ground, bursts upfield, and also look at the upper body, because route running is a complete piece for your body. It's the feet, it's the hips, it's the upper body. Look how he sells it. You get the snap from the lower part of his from his legs down to get upfield. Look at the upper body. He's snapping those shoulders and that neck. That type of precision and snap and decisiveness is something we have not seen from him with regularity. And him pulling it off this early in camp against one of the best nickel corners in the game, that level of nuance and sharpness and craftiness, that is what this offense needs from the slot position. And when you combine it with the burst and the explosiveness that McKenzie has, man, Kendall, that's a huge thing.
I think the really exciting thing about seeing this clip for me is it doesn't shut the door on the idea that this guy's still developing. I think the fact that, you know, what we've seen the past 3 years of him in Buffalo, you kind of write him off as to be, he is what he is. You know, you write him off to be another Levi Wallace situation. Like, we know what we got. This is what he is. This is what he can do for our offense. Exactly. He's maxed out. You see a clip like this, you see the spurts that he contributed in last year and how he was gaining some subtle nuances to his route running last year. You could see the mental portion was really coming into the fold for him. And then you see this, he's still developing. He is not a complete player yet, and he is working his way to be a maxed out version of Isaiah McKenzie. So I think that portion of it is very exciting.
And the maxed out portion of Isaiah McKenzie is such a huge thing. It's something we've talked about here offline in the film room and on Twitter as well. Like, how many people just say like, oh, it doesn't matter that Cole Beasley's gone. Like, you just put Isaiah McKenzie and you're good to go. They're different players. And I don't say that negatively for either of them. Like, that's not a knock against Beasley. That's not a knock against McKenzie. They are different. What they work against from a defensive perspective, they are used in different ways. They are not the same receiver. Part of what McKenzie hasn't done, or at least hasn't done with that consistency that Cole Beasley has a sharpness and a decisiveness to his routes. He's legitimately one of the best route runners from the slot in the NFL. The way his release packages, the way he's able to separate. McKenzie, to Eric's point, has been more of straight line speed, explosiveness, but he hasn't had that. Yep, that sharp, especially for someone who's smaller and is explosive. You don't see a lot of wiggle from him. You don't see a lot of make guys missing a phone booth type action. You would
Dante
get that.
Hall joystick
exactly
type runner.
You mess up angles straight.
Yes, you don't get that. You get that from Beasley, not with the ball in his hands, but in his route, his ability to shake anybody at the line or in his stem or on his break. That is what made him so valuable. If McKenzie can start to add those things, it's just tremendous, Eric, like what that means for him.
And to wrap up McKenzie, I'm sure he'll come up again, but he's been a star at camp. He's been that good. So a lot of people have questions and comments about him. But I will say, obviously, Gabriel Davis has been elevated number 2. He's not a guy that is going to separate and create a lot of separation with his speed. He separates with his size, his physicality, his route at the top of his routes. He's, just pushing off just a little bit on those in-breaking routes. Diggs can do it all. But outside of those two guys, if teams man up and want to use press man against the Bills wide receivers, they got to have some speed guys that can create separation quickly. And McKenzie is that guy. So when teams, go to that press man coverage, which we've seen the Chiefs do over the years, I think McKenzie can help them in that department. And I hope that he can, keep this trend going because he's had a good camp so far. As I said, all as advertised with him. He's earned it thus far.